What's going on, everybody? Today we're going to talk about Bitcoin. We're going to talk about the halving. We're going to talk about theta, and we're going to talk about how the halving relates to the price of crypto and kind of where we are in all of this. It's like a big jigsaw puzzle. We're trying to all figure it out. But at the end of the day, we got data on our side, and I'm going to share that with you now. Right now, we have about 4 hours and 50 minutes until the Bitcoin halving, and that is basically cutting the supply in half from, I think it was 6.25 Bitcoin down to 3.125 Bitcoin. So a big cut, right? 50%. And obviously, it doesn't take effect right away. It takes a couple days and a couple weeks to really start to affect the supply. So you call it a supply shock, right? So when does that supply shock actually occur? When do people actually start to feel the effects of not having as much Bitcoin mined, right? Because you have the miners out there, they're mining Bitcoin. As soon as they mine it, they sell it, which puts more supply into the market, right? So, but you have, and then you also have Grayscale, right? For whatever reason, they're just selling a lot of Bitcoin, right? And part of the reason, right, is because they've been buying very early on. So they made their profit. They're happy with what they made. So now they're offloading. But then on the contrary, you have BlackRock and all these other ETF funds swallowing the supply, right? Because they finally got approved not too long ago. So the effects of the ETF is occurring now, and the effects of the halving are going to occur very soon. But then you also have the immediate effects of the halving. Like, for example, you have the FOMO, right? Oh, it's the halving. Basically, it's the event, right? And I look at the halving as a reminder of why we're all here in the first place, right? Crypto is digital scarcity. We are trying to protect our wealth, right? It's all about protecting your purchasing power from rising inflation, right? Because we don't live in a people system. We live in a central bank fiat currency system that prints money out of thin air. They loan it to the government with interest attached, and we, the taxpayer, have to pay it back plus interest. To me, what sort of rigged deal is that? It's all a scam at the end of the day because it's all basically a monopoly over our Constitution. And basically, we have a private entity known as the Federal Reserve who basically has all the power in the world to do whatever it wants. And the way they do this, right? And then you have crypto, right? Crypto is the really a big solution, right? To be out of the banking system, basically an anti-debt instrument out of the banking industry. So what does the banks do? Right? People are upset and mad at like Elizabeth Warren, right? And by the way, here's another Bitcoin halving clock if you wanted to check out this one. This one's actually a little cooler here. But essentially, you have Elizabeth Warren who is doing, right? People are upset at her. I'm not. I have no problem with her. You know why? Because she is not a person. She is a ghost. She is an instrument. It's like, somebody goes in and shoots up, a place. Do you blame the gun or do you blame the person who did it, right? Well, normal, average people would blame the person, right? If you got hit by a car, do you blame the car or do you blame the person, right? You have Elizabeth Warren attacking crypto. Now, do you blame her, right? Or do you blame what is controlling her? Remember, Elizabeth Warren is merely an instrument of the central banks, right? Used at their disposal. So she's a puppet. In other words, she's a puppet. And, puppets do what puppets do. So it's like, well, yeah, she is the issue. But, you take her out, right? That's why we need John Deaton to win. John Deaton is a big proponent for the Ripple lawsuit. He basically, I've never heard of him since the Ripple lawsuit. He basically is a freedom fighter, right? He's a warrior. And we need people like that cannot be bought and paid for, right? So if Elizabeth Warren goes away, they're just going to replace her with somebody else, right? So at the end of the day, it wasn't really her. It's the banks who control her. So basically, the halving is a reminder of why we're all here in crypto in the first place, right? Digital scarcity, being an anti-debt instrument, protecting your purchasing power, understanding the technology and what it implies, understanding the utility value, understanding, how this can transform the world away from poverty, away from corruption, right? Because everything blockchain related, right? Even if it is quote unquote centralized, a lot of coins could be centralized. A lot of coins are decentralized, right? But the point of crypto is to be outside of the banking system, right? So you want to be outside, not inside. So, some of the things with the ETF kind of put them back into that traditional system, but we sort of need it because it is the driving force of continuing Bitcoin higher. And also, it opens the door for altcoin ETFs. So, in other words, you as an investor of crypto have to look at how much ammunition crypto actually has. And right now we have obviously the ETF, we have the Bitcoin halving, but we also have the Ripple lawsuit. And that will not only affect XRP, but it will affect all of crypto. If Ripple gets that settlement, if Ripple wins, then it basically sets the precedent for all other cryptos, right? So think about, like, for example, Cardano. If Ripple wins the lawsuit, the developers on Cardano and the investors on that blockchain are going to go even harder, right? Why? Because if Ripple wins, they can win too. So that's why the SEC was sort of betting the farm on beating Ripple, but Ripple said, you know what, we know the truth, and we're not afraid to go all the way to a grand trial, or a trial with a grand jury to determine the truth. And they're sticking to their guns. They know the situation very well. So, and then you also have Brad Garlinghouse coming out talking about a $5 trillion market cap by the end of the year. And he just came out the other day and re-emphasized that target. And he said it's easily obtainable. She goes, wow, that's a big target, right? I don't know where the clip is. I'll have to find it. But I think he was talking to Maria on Fox Business, I think, and they were discussing that, and basically he's saying, yeah, that target is pretty easy. So why would he say that? He's got to know something, right? I mean, he's sitting there talking to high level people all the time, like the chief Hong Kong monetary advisor, the IMF, the World Bank, different high level people, right? So he knows something's going on. But more importantly, he knows, probably because of the Ripple lawsuit, he understands that if Ripple, once it's over with, it's going to drive an enormous amount of liquidity into the market. Why? Because now, right, we already know XRP is not a security. It was deemed so by a judge. It is the only coin with regulatory clarity. But at the end of the day, you can say, well, I don't care about XRP. And that's fine. You don't have to. But the point is that adds ammunition to all of crypto. Remember when the SEC sued Ripple? XRP tanked, right? But what happened? The whole market tanked, right? So it affected the whole entire market. XRP, right? That's how powerful you could say XRP is. A top 10 coin getting hit, right? It drove the market down. Now, when the SEC sued Coinbase, it didn't do nearly as bad as damage as when the SEC sued Ripple. Remember, the whole market tanked. So, there's a lot to look forward to. And then we also have regulations coming. So why am I explaining all this? Because I'm basically setting the stage for what's to come, and basically understanding, this thing is probably barely getting started. We can see we're floating around that all-time high, right? We came up in a beautiful, a cup here, just rounding out, hashing out this bottom, and now we're at the point of the all-time high. So we're playing around in here. Yes, we can go down to the bull market support band, but if you look at, again, total three, we already hit the bull market support band. So again, which one's telling the truth? This one looks like it's already bottomed, right? You can see all those candles, right, basically developing a base in here. So it looks like at the very least we need a retracement. So we had this move down, we develop a base. When you do that, it looks like you want to come into a retracement. Then once you get into the retracement, then it can decide, does it wants to come down, take out the low real quick? Does it want to come down into reaccumulation, or does it want to flag out and go? And we'll talk about that when that day arrives. But right now, it's looking like it wants to pump into a retracement. So what does that mean for Bitcoin? Well, Bitcoin can still, slide down a little bit, but check this out. I wanted to show you the small time frame here. Look at that bullish hammer candle, by the way. We came down, we made a low, we made a lower low, but it was a slightly lower low. And then this candle, we wicked all the way below. Look at this. You see that there? So this was our low, and then we made a slightly lower low. Look at the 2-hour chart. Look at the bullish divergence that is forming here. So let me turn on the RSI, and you can see, you can't really see it, right? It looks like a double bottom, right? So from the untrained eye, it looks like a double bottom. But and it actually is, but if you look closely and I zoom in here, you can see we actually made a lower low. And you can say, well, why is that a good thing? Because it was very powerful. It came in and then boom, it got bought right back up. But why it's powerful is because of that. But then also you can see, right, the bullish divergence between this low and this low. So for example, from here down to here, right, is the same thing from here up to here. So this is going up, this is going down, and then boom, right? So, and then also we can see from this low here down to this low, and this low is going higher, right? So this is more bullish divergence. So you can see essentially it's starting to wane down a little bit, right? The selling pressure from this low to this low, from this low to this low, we're starting to flatten out. So that's a good thing. Obviously, we could still have one more low down to the bull market support band, but we did get bought up pretty quickly. So to me, this is probably it kind of looks like a flat. Let's look at this, and we're going to get into the halving stuff and talk about it. But it could potentially be a flat where we have boom, boom, and then boom, which would ultimately mean we have to come down, right? The flat would probably mean we would come down. Maybe we have a higher low. I'm not sure yet. But the thing is, right, the altcoins are holding pretty nicely. And we're not that far away from the bull market support band anymore. So we're getting pretty close here. I'd like to see it come up and then just tag it real quick and then get bought up with a big vengeance. Something like that. To really finish out the bottoming process. But yeah, that would be, put it this way, if Bitcoin hits the bull market support band and it bounces off nicely, to me, that's a good buying opportunity for the altcoins, not financial advice. So that's kind of where we are in the short term of Bitcoin. Let me see the count here. It can be a couple different things. We already have 1, 2, 3, 4, and we have 5, right? So, and then we came up and we made a slightly lower low. So it was actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? We made it kind of a lower low. And then we had this big impulse to the top. It kind of looks like a flat, an expanded flat. So just be cautious of, you know, a dump. And if it did, that's actually a good thing. So if we want the most bullish situation in crypto, because that's what we all want, then you are actually wanting Bitcoin to go down. You want Bitcoin to go down to test the bull market support band. So you can see, well, that's sort of the opposite of what normal people would say, right? Because a normal person would say, no, you don't want that, because if you do that, then you lose the support, right? Because here's our support right here, right? Here's our support and here's our range, right? So the price is going into the range, right? Or to the bottom of the range, to the top, to the bottom, right? Up to the top. And then it came to the bottom. It went slightly below it a little bit. It grabbed that liquidity, right? And then we kind of shot back in. But if we continue down, everybody's like, no, no, right? We lost the support. We lost this support. The halving is a joke. The halving didn't work. But in reality, that's not how it works. I'm going to show you all the times the halving occurred. You know, I know people are probably talking about it a lot today. I actually haven't been on YouTube today, but I'm sure a lot of people are sort of explaining the halving and things like that. But I'm going to do it, I think, in a different way, and to really sort of highlight the altcoins and what that means for, you know, THETA, XRP, and, you know, the altcoins we all like and we all hold. But essentially, if we did come down, that's a good thing. And we tag this area here, this 55, between 54 and 57K would be a very ultimate buy the dip situation. You know, and again, think about how bearish people would be if we lost 60, right? Because we're sitting at 64. That means we would have to drop $10,000 or near 10,000 just to hit it. So it would create, you know, a lot of bearishness. And when a lot of people get bearish, that's the time to get bullish, right? Because then everybody's, you know, shorting it, you know, all the stop losses, right? People's stop losses got triggered. And I'm sure a lot of people's stop loss got triggered here, because here's the low, right? And you could see the price went under, and it purposely went under. Why? Because it knew everybody's stop loss was there, and it triggered it on purpose to bring that liquidity. So all that liquidity came in, and then the price pumped back up. So people say, okay, now it's over, but we could easily come down. Now, if the altcoins, I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying hopefully it does happen. That way we can know without a doubt that it's over, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We could come, you know, 5 rolls, 6 rolls back up into 4, and then we come down for 7. Like a 7-wave bottoming theory, like some people like to say. But if we do hold here, then we want to see a base or some type of reaccumulation before we get going. And then that would have actually been the original idea all along, which is rise, crash, retrace, reaccumulation, sideways, go. So we're sort of right at that final area here of some interesting things. So let me go to the daily chart. And you can see, right, you kind of want to test it, because we came up here, we created a flat, we didn't test it. So the last time we had a halving was back over here, and look what happened. And look where it occurred. Look at this. And this is why I'm saying a lot of people are probably talking about the halving, and, you know, a lot of people are talking about what happened during the halving, after the halving, for the first price. But look at this. Look where the price is. The price, we broke above the bull market support band. We came all the way down, and look how close we were to touching it. We were basically, you know, a few $100s away from the bull market support band, right? So I think that's kind of interesting. And then if you look at the current price, right? And the halving is essentially today, right? And if you look where we are, basically the same type of situation. Here's the bull market support band, and we came down in this move, this down wave, right? And we're basically real close, right? Instead of a few $100s, it's a few $1,000s away, but in percentage terms, it's about the same. So I find that pretty interesting that, let's go back over here, you can kind of see it potentially was a flat here. So you have an A, B, and then you came all the way down for C, and that's where the halving occurred. And then the day after the halving, we had a big bounce. We had a big bounce to the upside. And then we created this sort of three-wave shape. So we also have to take into effect, what happened prior to the halving on all of these situations. And you can see, right, we had a big dump and the price was recovering. So we had a big recovery. The price went up from the low to the high, about 120, 150%. So that's part of the reason why we corrected, after the halving. But essentially, we had a beautiful bounce, right? And then we had this nice correction, this bullish correction here, boom, before taking off. So that was at one point the previous halving, which led to an amazing bull run. So let's continue going over here. So this halving, right, we actually went up quite a bit, right? So you have to take that into account, from, let's see here. So basically, I'll just start it here. We went up about 75%, and then we had a big dump, right? So you can see also we were creating an A, B, and a C. This halving occurred sort of in the middle of the B wave. The halving right now is occurring more over here, like to the previous example I just showed. So that's kind of why this one had a big dump. So people could say, yeah, we have a dump after the halving. Yeah, we could, but I think if we did, it would just be down to the bull market support band. Because you could see the halving occurred right in the middle of this B wave before it dumped down. So we're more closer to here. But essentially, it's the same story as the previous time. We came down, right? And then it sort of led into that next bull cycle. And then the previous time before that, look at this. And I think this is one of my favorite examples. So we came up, right? And then we had a big A. We came up for B, and then we came down for C. It was kind of an awkward ABC, right? Kind of like a running ABC, where the C leg didn't come all the way down. But it was really a rise, crash, retrace, and then we go down into reaccumulation. So it happened right in this reaccumulation phase. And then you can see after the halving, right, the day after the halving, we were on our way to the upside, probably about 10% or so. And then we went sideways, and then we continued pumping to the upside. So what does that necessarily mean? Well, all of the halvings, interestingly, occurred near the bull market support band in a correction. So that's the interesting part that I think nobody's explaining is, the halving, right, is basically an event, right? And each time it occurred, it happened in a correction. And then also, rather if it was an A, B, C, right, or a flat, it all happened in following a move to the upside, and then it happened in a correction. But then it also happened near the bull market support band. So let's, again, going back in time over here, look at this one. This one also occurred. We had this move to the upside, same story, and then we were also in the middle of an ABC. Now, some of them happened in the C leg, some of them happened in the B wave, some of them happened in reaccumulation. But the previous one happened in the C leg, and the current one is also happening in the C leg. So, and then if you go back even further, right, same thing with this one. This one came up, same thing. We came up, and it happened in a correction near the bull market support band. So we have an ABC in the bull market, off the bull market support band, right? We tested it, we tested again, and we continued higher, right? So same thing over here. We had a big impulse, we had a correction, we back tested the bull market support band right during the halving, and then all 3 times it led into a big bull run. So, I know a lot of people, again, are talking about what happens to the price after it tests the bull market support band, or I'm sorry, after the halving, but, and what we can expect. I'm sure, there's plenty of videos out there, but I think a lot of them are sort of missing the bigger picture, and the fact that, yes, we did go sideways each time. Maybe we had a dump, but it was all followed by a bull run. Yeah, we know that. But the interesting thing is, again, all the Bitcoin halvings occurred in an ABC type or some type of correction, and they also occurred after a big move to the upside, and they all occurred while correcting right above the bull market support band, right? So when you look at what's happening today, all of those examples, it's the same situation, right? We have this up move, we have an A, B, C, right? And we are right near the bull market support band, and it's happening right in here. So to me, that's actually quite interesting, right? So, and what's even more interesting, right, is, the other day I pointed out, look at this, the halving was right here, in 2016, and we came down into a C leg, right? But the halving now is already in the C leg. But that's one point of reference. The other point is, if you look at this wave here and you look at this wave here, and I take a bars pattern and I match it up back to where we are, you can kind of see the situation here, right? I mean, you can see how nicely, right, we came up, back down, came up, back down to the bull market support band. This one missed it, and then we had this big run up, right? And then we had this A, B, C. Same thing here. We had a big run up, A, B, C. This one pinpoint nailed the bull market support band. Let's see if this one does too. So again, I'll put it right down in here, and you can kind of see what's happening now. So if you were to take into account, what happens after the halving, well, essentially, again, all the halvings occurred inside of a correction following a move to the upside, and they were all near the bull market support band. A lot of them were ABCs. So following that, some of them continued into their correction, like this one over here. It continued into its correction, but before leading into a big move. But remember, the previous one happened over here, but we're sitting, at the all-time high. So it's really like it's happening over here. So this has never happened before. We have a Bitcoin halving at this point in history, because a lot of them were down over here, right? So like, for example, the other one occurred. Let me take this off. Here's the all-time high, right? So it's as if the halving occurred here, but it actually occurred over here. So we're kind of ahead of schedule, which could be a good thing. It can be a bad thing, because a bad thing meaning we could take longer to correct. We could take longer to go sideways before continuing to march up. You can also look at it as a more bullish thing. People are preempting the move. But what's also interesting is the fractal that I just shared was this wave here, but then also this wave here. So it's as if it's kind of happening already above it. So it'll be interesting to see, how the next weeks and months start to, affect the price, right? So if I were to just take a normal fractal, I think it's continuing higher. But let's say it had a lot more sideways to go, and I would just take the bottom here and put it here. Now, I don't think this is going to happen, not even close. It just doesn't look proportional or anything, but just kind of show you, after said halving, we kind of just trickled along, but we were continuing to climb. But just kind of give you a visual, but I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think, depending if we test it or not, this correction could take a little bit of time. But it would appear from the previous fractal I shared, that this is already basically almost complete. Maybe we have one more, maybe not. But basically, we want to shoot out of there, pull back, and then can start to continue higher. So that's sort of how I'm looking at the price of Bitcoin. And then if all of that goes well, then we can break that all-time high. And then that leads us into the altcoins, right? So looking at the price of THETA, we, been talking about THETA for a long time, going back to October down in here. And essentially the main idea has been we need to go into a retracement. So I still believe that's what's happening. That's the case, right? We're still heading into that retracement. Now, prior to that retracement, we did create a beautiful Wyckoff structure. And if you put it right about there, we came all the way down and we back tested it. So this is the perfect situation. We had this Wyckoff here, and then we had a little Wyckoff here. We broke above the bull market support band. We back tested it, right? After finishing the spring, then we broke out of this massive 2-year range, basically, almost. And then we came all the way down 55% in an ABC, and we back tested the top of the yellow range. And then also we're holding and resting above support above the bull market support band. So I don't know what else you can ask for. That was like sort of the perfect situation. And basically, we've been up here for a while, and we just wanted it to get it over with, and bam, it came down very quickly. So now here we are, right, resting above the bull market support band, just like back over here. So just to kind of give us a little representation, something like that, would be not out of the realm of possibility. Basically we want to hold support. Now, if Bitcoin does come down to the bull market support band and we take out this low, it would still be a good situation, because number one, we would most likely have bullish divergence. So if I look at the 4-hour, right, and let's say Bitcoin decided, I'm going to come down and test it, then we have this 1-2, right, or this 3-wave move up. We came down, we're going sideways, and let's say maybe it goes up a little more, but eventually it comes down. Two things can happen. Number one, we can have a low, we can have a higher low. Or we can come down like this, make a slightly higher low or a lower low, from here down to here, kind of like how Bitcoin did on the 2-hour chart, but then quickly get bought back up and then stayed in the range, right? What that would do with the RSI is we would come down, we would have a low and a higher low. The price would have a low and a lower low, so that would create, hopefully, the bullish divergence we need and want to get us out of here. So that's kind of how I'm looking at the price of Theta, kind of a wait and see moment. Again, the bottom could be in, or we might need one more wave. Now, it appears that we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe this is coming up. Maybe this is a complex 4. So 1, 2, 3. And then we have an A, B, C for 4. And then we come down for 5. A quick spike to the low, right? Right after the halving, right? Because everybody's bullish for the halving. Everybody thinks something's going to happen. It doesn't happen. Kind of the sentiment goes away. We have a big dump, right? And people say, oh, we're bearish. But basically all it was that final liquidity grab, final pack your bags moment. So, that's kind of how I'm anticipating it. Now, we'll see. Again, the low could be in. Maybe it has one more low. The point is, we really want to close the week, right? Because we're at Saturday. Tomorrow's Saturday. So, if you look at the weekly candles, they look still pretty bullish. We have this engulfing candle, but we wicked off of it. We have this following candle, we wicked off of it. So all we want to do is close above. So the following week, we can actually wick even below it further, but as long as we close the weeks above the bull market support band, we're good. Now, the bigger bearish idea, right? Now, if this happens, it would be bearish in the short term, but essentially coming down to backtest that area right in there. So I would say, let's see, about $1.30 to $1.45. So somewhere in there, and that would be, right, we have this Wyckoff, also inverse head and shoulders. We break out. We come all the way down to the bull market support band. We get a big bounce, right, an A. We come up, we bounce up, but we can't break out, right? We can't break the high. We retrace, we get into the retracement zone, and we can't break it. So basically it turns into an A. All of this is B, and then we come down for C, and then we back test all of this area here, this major support, or this resistance line, and then turn it into the new support. Then that would be incredibly bullish for a major move to the upside. So it would definitely take a lot longer. But yeah, that would kind of be if we lost it and if Bitcoin really decided to take a dump. Maybe we come down, tag it quickly, and then get it over with. The point is, we want to continue heading into the retracement level because that's sort of what needs to happen. It doesn't need to happen, but it's likely to happen that way. And then the real story will be told when we get, into this block here between, $5 and $10. So that's kind of how I'm looking at Theta, and then also THETA-FUEL, right? Again, with the Wyckoff, we're at that moment, right, where it's that final phase before the takeoff phase. So, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 back test. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and now we're back testing. right in here, right in here. So once this area gets worked out in here, right, I mean, you can see on the example, sort of bouncing around in there maybe for a couple weeks, right? So eventually this thing should start to take off. And to me, it looks very interesting. And then also, before I go to Theta Fuel, what also looks interesting with Theta is when you look at the EMA ribbon, look at this. We are also backtesting the EMA ribbon. So you can see how this one got squeezed into the ribbon. This one also can as well. I mean, so, you know, here's our down move, and then that's when we test it. Basically, we went 4 weeks of going sideways here. So if I had to, I mean, obviously it can go a lot quicker than that, but essentially something like that, you know, to get us out of there. So we're holding beautifully above the EMA ribbon. You can see the last few times, I mean, we didn't even test it at all, right? When we had that big breakout, it was just on a rampage. So I wouldn't expect it to get too deep if it's going to continue to follow the same path as last time. Even the monthly chart, we're back testing the EMA ribbons, right? I mean, you can see the monthly looking good. But then this is also what I wanted to show you. Look at the MACD. I mean, we're getting close to that zero line here. This is the monthly MACD. We're continuing to have, you know, bullish momentum, right? And then you can see the cross occurred back over here. And we talked about that too. The cross occurred right as we were on the bull market support band, and then it led into a beautiful rally, right? And then we can also see the blue moving average getting close to the zero. Basically, we want the orange and the blue to cross above the zero line, which is this line right here, right? And for the histograms to continue building higher. So we'll keep an eye on that. But yeah, so far it looks very bullish. I mean, you can just see the progress we've been making here. So yeah, it's a good sign. And then also we have the monthly parabolic SARs. I mean, remember, we're still, just kind of a reminder, we're still you know, above the stars. We broke out above them. If we go to the daily, you can see we're below the stars, right? So we need to get back. You can kind of see how the stars are falling, or the SARs. I like to just say stars, but you know, you could see the direction they're falling. So if I just put a line like that, probably around April 27th, if we continue to go sideways, right? Or if we continue, we can break out, and then the stars will be on the bottom, and then we can hold that support. Also, when you look at Theta Fuel just recently broke above its monthly star last month. So in the month of March, we broke above it. And let's see, if we look at that. I mean, that is as bullish as it gets right there, with the MACD crossover, right? We have the histograms flowing to the downside, and then each green has been bigger and bigger than the next one. So we have positive momentum. We want the two to cross above the zero line right here and continue going. But this is a long-term indicator, right? Sort of a macro indicator suggesting we have more bullish momentum to come. I mean, you can see both moving averages are angled to the upside. We're above the star. We broke above the Wyckoff accumulation range. We're back testing the range. We're also, you know, back testing the bull market support band. We have Bitcoin at an all-time high. We have the Bitcoin halving. We have, again, the Ripple lawsuit. So a lot of things are lining up for the betterment of crypto. And, it's all about, again, adding ammunition to it. And then, if we get an ETF on an altcoin, that would totally cause a massive, in my opinion, a big alt season, right? Getting a Bitcoin ETF was bullish for the whole market, but to get an altcoin ETF, that signals to the whole community, hey, if that altcoin could get an ETF, then this one can, and this one can, and then it drives more speculation and more adoption and more people investing. And then once that lawsuit is over with, people feel a lot better, about the ruling, and then, different crypto projects can take that ruling to help their own case or their own regulation. We have stablecoin bill being introduced. So, it's only it's only a matter of time before we get a crypto bill, and probably that'll occur next year. So, but for now, we got the ETFs and, supply shrinking. And basically, right, when you look at Bitcoin, we're at that moment where, this is the all-time high, and Bitcoin is at the all-time high, basically consolidating. Once it starts to get going, that's when the rest will get to the retracement levels, right? And then once it finishes off, that's when it gets to their all-time highs. And then once Bitcoin goes into distribution, that's when the altcoins go absolutely crazy, or at least that's how it's been. So you could see the MACD on Bitcoin. I mean, look how bullish it is right now. We still have plenty of room to go. But again, this is what we want to see with THETA and THETA, right? Because THETA, right, the lines are still below the zero. They don't look, like this. So we want it to continue to mature in those altcoins. I mean, just looking at some of these coins like Render, we have this spike to the upside, we come back down. Maybe we get another three-wave shape. If that's the case, then I expect more sideways. Obviously, we're just in this range here, right, above the bull market support band, where we need to find support and create, an accumulation zone so that we can defend the support and also, drive the prices eventually higher. But creating that base is the important thing. If it's not a base, it's probably a fourth wave, and then we get that final wave. So yeah, that should do it. Here's Ethereum here, right? It looks like a nice ending, right? I mean, the length of this and the length of this are sort of symmetrical. So you would think it's getting close to done. So yeah, we'll see how the weekend fares. I mean, last weekend we had a bloodbath. So hopefully this weekend we can stay strong, and then it'll really set the tone for the next week. The weekly candle is also very important. We can see it's, we're starting to get a doji here coming from the bottom, which is a good sign, right? Because when you can see, these dojis, right? Like coming up here, we had a doji, we come down. We come up, we had a doji, we came down, right? So a lot of these doji candles are good indicators to say that we're starting to carve out a bottom. Now, the part that's not so good is the fact that this candle is going to close below this candle here. So the close is going to be slightly lower. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, other than that, I'm still macro bullish. I mean, again, the halving is proven over and over again you know, higher prices. And I just thought it was interesting that the previous halvings all occurred following a move to the upside, and then also following a correction, and then also all of them being near the bull market support band. So we had a correction, or an up move into a correction at the bull market support band, led to an impulse, right? Same thing back over here. We had this move to the upside. We had a correction, right? And then the halving occurred right into this ABC correction, right around the bull market support band. And then again back over here. I think it was it over here? Or I think it was over here. Can't remember. Either way, it doesn't matter, because this isn't. We had a move to the upside. We corrected into the bull market support band. We had a move to the upside. We corrected into the bull market support band. So the halving also occurred in this area, which then ultimately led to a big bullish move. So, you know, and then we also have the fractal in here. So as long as we stay above it, I mean, we can still keep the momentum going. We're right at the all-time high, so, you know, anything can happen. So, you know, we obviously could be black swan events. There could be big, like, a stock market crash, or more chaos and war in the Middle East, or something artificial to drive the price down. But I think eventually, the more they try to suppress it, the more they try to, you know, keep it low, ultimately it's like a slingshot. The tension will build, and it'll only create a more impulsive wave to the upside. So so we got, you know, 3 hours and 22 minutes to go. So yeah, it should be, this is, for me, it's like a celebratory moment of, again, why we're all here, crypto. And it's, you know, it's kind of like an event to makes for good headlines. It brings more adoption. It allows reality to set in, like, hey, this thing's getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and more scarce and more scarce, and eventually it becomes so scarce to obtain, and then people venture out into altcoins. And I think the altcoins is really where the percentages are. So if you haven't seen my previous video, I did, if you want XRP, I did a previous video. Here's the thumbnail. You can go back and check that out if you haven't seen it. Also, I thought this chart was pretty interesting. It could be true, it could be not, but I thought it was an interesting inverse correlation between the dollar and crypto. All right, guys, that'll do it. That'll wrap it up. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. If you can, hit that like button and hit subscribe, and drop a comment and let me know what you guys think about the halving. Do you think it's already priced in? Do you think the halving will have a significant impact, just like it has the previous times? Do you think it's going to take some time? And how do you think this election year plays in? And you know, because there's a lot of moving parts. You have the election, you have the SEC, you have all the lawsuits, you have the ETFs, you have, you know, the Bitcoin halving, and you know, all these different types of things that are sort of intertwining with each other. Eventually, I think it all leads to higher prices, because, I mean, inflation is starting to tick up again. So, you know, it should be an interesting ride. But that'll do it, guys. I appreciate everybody. If you want to support the channel, you can always do so through the YouTube tip jar. If you have any coins you want me to take a look at, you can drop them in the comment section, and I'll add them to the list. But until next time, I will catch you guys on the next one. Cheers.